Josh, are you ready to go on that? Not yet, but you're good to go.
We all set to go in the control room?
I think the control room just needs Commissioner Fisher to check in. And is that it?
We're going to get started here. I'm going to call the Butte-Silver Council of Commissioners regular meeting for Wednesday, August 5th, 2020 to order. We have roll call, please.
Mr. Chief Executive, it looks like we have 12 present and 0 absent.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner McDonough, would you lead us into prayer, please?
Almighty God, we implore you, look upon us and guide us this night as we make decisions which shall greatly affect our community of Butte-Silver. Direct our thoughts, words, and deeds so that we please you and best serve our fellow citizens. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. And under items not addressed on the agenda, we do have 2 communications that we have to ask for suspension of the rules to get them placed on the agenda. So, Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. In accordance with the provisions of Section 6 of Rule 6 of the Rules of the Business of the Council of Commissioners of the City and County of Butte-Silver Bow, the Council hereby finds an emergency condition exists which requires that the Council rules be suspended to allow Communication 2020-328 and Communication 2020-329 to be added to the agenda for the regular Council meeting. The reason for the suspension is as follows. Communication 2020-328 is a communication from Public Works Director Mark Neary requesting that the Council authorize the Chief Executive to sign a change order for Butte-Silver Bow Shop relocation project. This communication was not submitted by the deadline for the August 5th, 2020 agenda because the details of the change order were not known prior to such deadline. The reason for suspension for 2020-329 is the communication from Butte-Silver Bow Law Enforcement Department, BSB LED, Captain Doug Conway, requesting that the Council authorize a public hearing to be held at the August 5th, 2020 regular meeting regarding the submission of an application for a Bureau of Justice Assistance, fiscal year 2020, Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Grant, a JEG. This communication was inadvertently not submitted by the deadline for August 5th. However, the publications required to hold this public hearing have been advertised, and in order to meet the August 19th, 2020 deadline for submission of the publication for this grant, we're requesting that it be added to tonight's agenda. Mr. Chief Executive, at this time I make a motion to approve the suspension of the rules to consider placing Communication 2020-328 and 2020-329 on the agenda at the August 5th regular meeting.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded to suspend the rules to place Communications 328 and 2020-329 on tonight's agenda. Is there anything on the question? Will everyone please vote? I believe, before you vote, is the title on your screen the right numbers? 329 and 328.
Oh, it should be not
3259 on mine.
Yeah, they're wrong.
Yeah, mine's 59.
It should be Communication 2020-328 and Communication 2020-329.
I'll ask Jason to make that correction. Okay. He's just working on it now. All right, Mr. Chief Executive, it looks like 2020-328 and 329 is now the motion. So if the commissioners could revote.
Will everyone please vote? Anyone wishing to change their vote? Will the clerk please record the vote?
There we go. Mr. Chief Executive, it looks like we have 12 yay and 0 nay.
The motion carries, and we will discuss those two communications at the end of the consent agenda. Under the Chief Executive's report, I just want to emphasize that with COVID-19 numbers increasing in Butte-Silver, I just want to remind everyone to be super cautious out there. Use hand sanitizers as much as possible. Social distance and wear your mask when you're in the public. And please pass that around, and we cannot get too complacent because we've got to keep our numbers down if at all possible. It's for everyone's safety. And then one other item I'd like to talk about is the state's recently released report on monitoring the activities with parent tailings that was in the newspaper just recently. No, there's nothing in that report that comes as a surprise to Butte-Silver negotiators or any other party to the CD. There's been a much disagreement about how well the groundwater collection system has worked for quite some time, probably since it was built. The recent report that the state put out, EPA and AR disagree with what was reported. But regardless of the groundwater remedy proposed in the CD, reflects a reasonable and effective way to address groundwater issues in the Bipson. All parties to the CD, the state, EPA, AR, and Butte-Silver have agreed to the provisions of the CD, including requirements for tailings removal, Parrot, East Diggins, Northside tailings, Blacktail berm, butte reduction works, with additional groundwater capture and upgrades to the existing groundwater collection system and a long-term monitoring program that will dictate additional work requirements if they're necessary in the future. These proposed actions have been designed and intended to address the concerns around past disagreements and the performance of the subdrain and the need for additional groundwater capture along Silver Bow and Blacktail Creeks. AR has agreed to pay for all the work, and it will be protected to the citizens. And nothing in the recent report that appeared in the paper changes any of that. And if you want to hear more about the report, the discussion will probably take place at the BNRC meeting scheduled for tomorrow night. And it's going to be a virtual meeting. And if you tune in and just listen to that, you may answer a lot of questions that you may have. Or, as always, our Superfund staff is available to answer any of your questions at any time. So please call John, Julia, or Eric if you have any questions, or my office. Thanks. That's all I have under my report. It's going to be a long meeting probably, so now's the time for public comment on any items on the agenda.
Will you open up the phone?
We'll call in. We'll go to the phone.
Mr. Chief Executive, I don't have any letters to read because the ones that I have are all for the public hearing.
Okay.
We have opened the phone lines, and right now there doesn't appear to be anybody. If we can just give it a second.
Yeah, we'll give it a minute or two.
Mr. Chief Executive, there appears to be nobody on the phone.
Okay, well then we'll move along with the agenda. Section 1, bid openings, public hearings, petitions, and or presentations. We do have a bid opening and several public hearings. County Attorney Joyce, do we have proof of publication?
Mr. Chief Executive, we do have proof of publication for the bid opening in all 5 public hearings, and all appear to be in order.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go to number 1, Communication 2020-315. Mark Neary, Public Works Director, requesting Council of Commissioners for a bid opening that has been advertised for the Hanson and Mercury Streets Rehab Project that will be held August 5th, 2020 at the regular council meeting. Mr. Neary, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Chief Executive Palmer and Commissioners. We received 2 bids for the Hanson and Mercury project. The first one is from Hoffman's R&M Services. By the way, the engineer's estimate on this project is $822,000 even. Hoffman.
Mr. Chief Executive, there is a bid bond in the amount of 10% from a licensed surety company that appears to be in order.
Thank you.
Mr. Chief Executive, the total price is $826,204 even. $826,204.
Okay, thank you.
Pardon me, who was that bid from?
That was Hoffman.
Yeah, Hoffman Services out of Butte. Second one is Jim Gilman Excavating.
Mr. Chief Executive, there is a bid bond in the amount of 10% from a licensed surety company that appears to be in order.
Thank you.
Mr. Chief Executive, the total price on this is $598,579. $598,575.
Excellent. Any questions from the commission for Mr. Neary? Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Mr.
I have a
Chief
question.
Oh, didn't see you. Who was that?
Fisher.
Oh, Commissioner Fisher. I didn't see your name.
Chief Executive Palmer. Are these funds part of the gas tax money, the same that was used like on Hill Avenue last year?
Yes.
Yes, they are.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the council?
A follow-up, please.
Sure, Commissioner Fisher.
Being we had an estimate of $822,000 and a bid come in at under $600,000, will we be able to use that other $220,000 on another street or road?
I believe we will, yes, after we review these bids, and if they're acceptable, then, yeah, it gives us some surplus to be able to use on another project.
Thank you, Chief Executive Palmer.
Okay, Commissioner Morgan?
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. At this time, I'll make a motion that we refer the bids to the Public Works Department and await their recommendation.
Second.
And we have a motion made and seconded to refer the 2 bids back to the Public Works Department and wait for their response to this communication. Is there anything on the question? Will everyone please vote? Anyone wishing to change their vote? Will the clerk please record the vote?
Mr. Chief Executive, it looks like we have 12 yeas, 0 nay.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we'll go to number 2, Communication 2020-291. Danette Gleason, Finance and Budget Director, requesting Council of Commissioners permission to schedule a public hearing for the adoption of the fiscal year 2021 final budget and establish the user rates for metro sewer system, stormwater system, solid waste disposal, and road maintenance districts. Public hearing will begin on August 5th, 2020, and will be continued until the council sets the date to adopt the fiscal year 2021 budget, fix the rate, and the levies. So after tonight, public hearing will continue to leave it open until next Wednesday and we'll have a special meeting just prior to the committee of the whole to adopt the final budget.
Mr. Chief Executive, just so you know, you skipped number 1, 2020-290. But if you want to go back to the...
Yeah, you're correct. We'll finish this one since I already read it.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Okay. Danette, would you like to give a report?
Sure. Thank you, Chief Executive Palmer. Commissioners, for the record, I'm Danette Gleason, the Finance and Budget Director for Butte-Silver. Most of the information we've already presented over the course of the last couple months in regards to the budget when we discussed the preliminary budget, so not a lot of significant changes. Our certified values did come in at $68,200,386, which was extremely close to our projected value, again with about a 2% increase in value from our prior fiscal year. The total appropriations will remain at about $138 million. There'll be some changes over the next few days as we finalize our year end, and then some grant information is still trickling in for us. The tax supported budget is at $49 million, which is supported by about 54% in property tax revenue, or about $27 million. As we presented throughout the whole budget process, we anticipated no tax increase this year, and again, I can state that I believe there will be no tax increase, if not a slight decrease, when we present to you next Wednesday night. With that said, I did send out to you, and I have to apologize, I didn't get them out earlier to you today, was some budget amendments sheets. Just on a high note, a lot of these changes are basically from projects that are under construction that we balance out at year end and then move the money over into fiscal year 21 to complete those projects. Many of the adjustments also include grant revenue, whether it's new grants that we've received or, for example, you'll see one called SAMHSA grant. It's a new grant that we got under the CARES Act for $130,000 that's been added to the budget. There's also some adjustments in the health department budgets that happens every fiscal year as we close out all their grant budgets. So there's several changes within the health department. And then again, construction in the parks grant donation budget for the construction that's taken place out in Stoughton Park. We have an increase in the road of about $1.2 million. That basically is just the transferring again of projects throughout the year and moving them over into the next fiscal year. And then we were really conservative when we set the budget in the preliminary budget process. And so now we're fully comfortable with the number. They had originally requested about $2 million for this year, and we're hitting that mark. So that's great news that we're able to do that. I know it's always been one of the high priorities of the commissioners to address the roads in Silver County. So that shows, too, the strength and the power of having the road maintenance district, because we're now able to have a lot of additional funding available in the road tax-supported budget to do this type of work. We've also had some changes just in the water administration budget based on their financials, and then the shop, as the project is completed, we had to make some changes in the shop budget. So with that said, if you have any questions with these budget amendments, please feel free to give me a call and we can walk through a lot of those amendments. I do expect that there'll be a few more coming your way next week prior to the budget adoption, just as we close out our year end. And that's all I have for you.
Thanks, Dana. Another great job. Any questions for Danette from the council before we open the public hearing? Don't see any hands, so I'll open the public hearing and call for proponents.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. We'll open the phone line.
Second call for proponents.
Mr. Chief Executive, we do have somebody on the phone.
Okay.
Thank you for calling the Butte-Silver Council of Commissioners meeting. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Bud Kressler. My address is 605 West Galena.
Hello, Bud. Welcome.
Thank you.
We're currently on looking for proponents for communication 2020-291 regarding the budget. Do you have a comment regarding that communication?
No.
Okay. Anything?
My comment, my comment will be regarding the proposed drug and alcohol recovery house.
Okay. Can you call back in a minute when we get to that communication?
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, he was wanting to comment on the other public hearings, so were there any other phone calls, John?
Doesn't look like it at this point.
No other calls.
We'll go to third and final call for proponents.
No other calls, Mr. Chief Executive?
Seeing none, we'll go
Looks like we may
to
have called back in.
opponents. Are there any opponents?
Mr. Chief Executive, we do have another call.
Okay.
Thank you for calling the Butte-Silver Council of Commissioners meeting. We're currently on communication 2020-291. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Gary Garwood. I live at 200 Shorty Way here in Butte.
Welcome to the meeting. Please state your comment.
About the railroad, the train coming through here, I'd be very much against it because we live up here on the East Ridge, and the tracks would be right up against our backyard. And when we bought our property 20 years ago, we checked with the railroad, and they said that they would never run trains through here again. And after seeing the condition of the tracks, because I've walked up here a lot, it'd be an awful expense to get it going. And once you did, you'd probably end up with coal trains coming through here, which would be pretty devastating for a community that's trying to clean itself up. Besides the fact that Amtrak is going broke back east, how is this going to work? We're very much against it, myself and my wife.
Thank you. We will note that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, another early call for another public hearing. So that one will go along with the other communication on the public hearing on the rail upgrade. So second call for opponents.
It doesn't look like we have any right now.
Okay, third and final call for opponents.
No other phone calls, Mr. Chief Executive.
Seeing none, we'll continue to hold this public hearing until next Wednesday, and it will be finalized at that time. So we'll go back to number one, communication 2020-290. The next Police and Finance and Budget Director requesting Council of Commissioners permission to schedule a public hearing to begin on August 5th to discuss a possible rate increase for the solid waste collection district fees to cover the cost of the contract services with McGree Corporation.
Yep. Chief Executive Palmer, Commissioners, again, Danek Gleason, the Finance and Budget Director for Butte-Silver. Staff is proposing the rates to be increased from the current rate of $93 per residential unit on an annual basis to $106.50. This is a $13.50 annual increase. $6.75 will be due in November on the increase, and $6.75 again in May. This will cover the contract that was negotiated and entered into and passed by the Butte-Silver Council of Commissioners earlier in the year that became effective on July 1st. Previous rates, we originally should have been charging somewhere in the area of about $101. Instead of the $93, the difference was coming out of reserve funds, which no longer can sustain taking this out of reserve funds and then paying for the cell expansion that has taken place out in the landfill. So we're making this recommendation to move just to cover the contract costs that have been negotiated.
Thank you. And I might add that this contract price is good for the next 5 years. Mm-hmm. So there will not be another increase to McGree for the next 5 years at the state at this rate.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Any questions for myself or Danette? Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Palmer. Thank you, Danette. I agree we have great garbage service in Butte, and it is a good value. But being in my position, I have to answer the constituents of Butte-Silver Bow. And I believe when we put new garbage cans in 4 years ago, that there would be no increase. And I've talked to Danette. She said that was for the time period prior to now. So I find a $13.50 increase from $93 to $106 is about a 14% increase. And that seems to be percentage-wise, a large increase. That bothers some of my constituents, although I do think it's a great value still. The other thing that kind of bothers me about this is, apparently last time when we done the contract, there was a no bid compete clause in it or something where we don't have to bid these out every 4 or 5 years. And for a contract, I think right now we pay McGree $106,000 a month. So I guess my question is, what will our monthly payment be to McGree now? Per month.
So, Chief Executive Palmer, yeah, Commissioner Fisher, Commissioners, I think we have to step back, and I need to explain that you had made a mention in the increase is over 14% increase. What I had stated previous was the contract prior, the 5-year contract prior to this, the rate should have been $101.43 per residential unit, not $93. We were using reserve funds to backfill those rates in the prior year. The contract amount is based on the number of residential units that we have in the landfill district times that 106.50. And so right now it's like 12,568 units. One advantage of working on your computer, let's see, it's about $111,000 a year. So you'll see that it's not a 14% increase in the contract rate, and that's because we were not charging the residential customers the full amount in the prior contracts because reserve funds were being used to offset those costs that no longer can happen. It is very cheap. This contract is significantly cheap. I pay anywhere in the neighborhood of $28 to $32 is what I paid over the last per month over the last years not being in this district. My rate fluctuates based on the fuel prices. But if you take my rate at $28 times 12, I pay $336 a year compared to a residential customer within the district getting a good deal at $106.50. So I think it's a significant advantage to the customers, and really the only way we can afford the contract going forward is this way because the reserve funds we had to allocate and use for the cell expansion, so we did not have to raise rates on that side for the cell expansion that was in excess of $3 million. So I think we've done a great service here for the ratepayers in the landfill district on both the collection side and the disposal side.
Follow-up, Commissioner Fisher?
Thank you, Danette. I agree it is a good value. I guess, am I correct in stating that we now pay $106,000 per month for to McGree? Is that correct?
Before July 1st, we paid 101.43. We paid 106,231, and we're going to pay 111. So the percentage increase on the contract was less than 5%, right at 5% for the 5-year period. It is not every time. Most contracts, when you deal with construction contracts, each year you see an increase for inflation or other cost factors for every year within that contract. McGree's have been very great to our community, and we always have been able to negotiate a contract over a 5-year deal. So it doesn't have inflation or cost increases every fiscal year.
Follow, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you once again. So now instead of paying $106,000 per month, Butte-Silver would pay McGree $111,000 per month, which is a $5,000 per month increase. Times 12 months is about $60,000 per year. Is that correct?
Yes, 5%. 5% increase.
Yeah, 5% increase. And the other thing is I understand that, and I have no complaints about McGree. The garbage service is great. The other thing is, how do we get away with not bidding out a contract that is in the yearly amount of like $1.2 to $1.4 million per year? How do we get away with not bidding that out? Because under a 5-year contract, that amounts to about $8 million or $8 or $9 million. I just don't know how we get by without that. In our past conversation, you stated that we had an agreement with McGree when we put the new cans in that he wouldn't raise the rates.
No, that's not. I mean, we did have a conversation about it, but it was based on how the RFP was done 5 years ago. County Attorney Eileen Joyce is on. She could probably explain more on how the bid process took place 5 years ago. Well, actually, 5 years ago with McGree's. Not just with McGree's. It was a total RFP process, and in that RFP bid process, it allowed for another 5-year extension onto the bid process. So it will go out to bid next time. So I don't know if County Attorney Joyce wants to talk about that. It had nothing to do with buying garbage cans or anything in that I recall. It all had to do with how the bid packet and the RFP was released 5 years ago.
County Attorney Joyce, would you like to add?
Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Fisher, Danette's accurate. That was part of the RFP that was issued, that there was a one-time renewal. So whoever was awarded the contract, which was McGree's 5 years ago, then they were allowed to have another 1 second 5-year period of time to continue with that same contract. And so that is what we're doing tonight. Or that's what was already approved, their contract in public hearings about the rating.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you, Danette. Thank you, Chief Executive Palmer. Just answering some of the concerns of my citizens. I think we have a great garbage service. It's just the dollar amount gets confusing. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Storage.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I just want to put it out there that for anybody that's listening, that this, and pardon me, we have it verified by Danette Gleason, this rate increase has nothing to do with the addition of Walkerville to the garbage collection system of Butte-Silver. That's correct, Danette?
Chief Executive Palmer, Commissioner Storage, Commissioners, that is correct. It has nothing to do with the addition of Walkerville. This was all negotiated before we even began the discussions and going through the process of adding Walkerville to the collection district. That will, however, when we add those units on, to get back to some of Commissioner Fisher's questions about how much do we pay them monthly, when we add the 300 or 400 units in Walkerville, then of course the amount that we pay to McGree's for the collection will also adjust. The contract allowed for those adjustments, so anytime we increase or decrease by 20 units, the monthly rate changes.
Thank you, Danette.
Okay. Anything further questions from the council? Commissioner Anderson. You're on mute still.
Thank you. I have a
Actually, two questions. When we renew this contract, when the first contract went out, one of the things with it was that it was supposed to keep the alleyways and everything a lot cleaner because all the cans have lids and everything. And in the great many areas of my district, one of the problems that I see going up and down the alleys on occasion, and one of the complaints I get numerous times, and thankfully Community Richmond has helped with that on numerous occasions, is that there are so many cans from some of these apartment complexes. There'll be an 8-plex or a 12-plex on the corner of Park and Clark. There's two 12-plexes with 24 cans. There's just not enough space in the alleyway to handle that many cans, and a lot of them have been run over. A lot of them have been thrown out. I picked up a couple that were demolished and had to take them to the dump myself because I was just tired of complaints about it. So what can we do to address some of those issues with this contract? I know that this contract is a monetary thing, but there's other issues that we have with the garbage collection that I think really need to be addressed with this contract outside of the monetary issue. And I don't know if this is the right recourse for it or how we go about doing that, but I don't feel comfortable passing another increase. The increase I'm all right with, but I think it is fine to a point, and that goes into my second question, which would be if they had a renewal for a one-time for the 5-year option on this, how come what Eileen said, that with the last contract with the RDP, they had an opportunity for a one-time renewal for another 5 years on that contract. If they're locked into that contract, why are we doing a rate increase? I can understand doing the rate increase and bringing it up to the $101 for the amount that we're currently paying, because I don't believe we can subsidize it forever. But going above that original contract, why are we doing that? And thank you.
I guess there are a couple of parts to your question, and I think I understood it. There was an echo in there someplace. So the first one had to do with the number of cans at the apartment buildings. If it's a 12-pack, 12 flags, you have 24 cans out there. You would have had 24 cans out there whether you went to the new system or not. You probably would have had more because there were smaller cans at the time. And these ones have the built-in lids.
Before there was a couple of dumpsters there.
And I guess that's where I was going with this, is that we would have to work with the property owners and see if a dumpster system is a better way to go, and work with McGree's and the property owner, maybe yourself as the commissioner for that district, and try to figure out if there is a better way. Maybe a dumpster is the way to go, and on those larger buildings. So we can look at that. And as far as the second part to your question, it's just typical that there's an increase built in when someone rebids after 5 years. They're going to, 4 years, whatever it is, they're going to, even if it's a yearly contract with a reopener or a rebid, they are going to increase with a percentage. Usually, it's very seldom you go down when you're getting the same service, but as cost of materials, and manpower, and everything else increases, which is typical business, the way it works. Follow up, Commissioner Anderson.
I would agree with that to a point, but if you're renewing the contract on the same terms, if it's a renewal on that, do you revert to the same terms, or are there different terms involved in that?
Chief Executive Palmer.
Danette.
Chief Executive Palmer, Commissioner Anderson, just to get back to your first comment about the paying more than what the contract is, that's not accurate. You passed a contract and approved a contract and an increase. I believe the contract went to you on July 1st with that increase. So you've already accepted that. You already accepted the $106.50 per residential unit. That's all we're paying. We're not paying any more or any less. That's what we're asking to pay, is just pass on the cost, and that's all we have to do for this district. As far as your comments, when the RFP was released 5 years ago, and let out, it allowed for the opportunity for renegotiation with a new contract. So the contract, we were allowed to extend a contract and renegotiate without going to an RFP for that 5-year period. And I think some of Commissioner Fisher's comments were accurate when he was talking about the garbage cans, but I think it was lended more to the fact that doing new equipment and having new trucks, you couldn't expect a contractor to go out, buy all new trucks, change their processes, and only give them a 5-year contract when they were putting all this huge capital investment out there, and not give them at least another 5-year option if they were going to RFP that out. And it was available to any contractor that wanted to bid, and McGree was the only sole bidder back 5 years ago.
Thank you.
Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Just question, the $106 is per year, is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Olson.
Thank you, Chief Executive. I guess when I'm looking at it, over a 5-year period, if it's going up by 5%, that's only 1% per year. That's below the cost of living increases that we've been seeing in the past. They've mostly been about 2%. So I think this is actually a pretty good deal, at least from my point of view, even though I don't have the opportunity at this point to be on it. But for the citizens of Butte-Silver, I think it's a pretty good deal. Thank you.
Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I just want to comment a little bit on what Commissioner Anderson says. Bill, I know exactly what you're talking about because there's a couple of those in my area as well regarding, the dumpsters or the garbage cans showing more garbage, and I've looked more into it, and it's really not McGree's fault, 100% on what that's doing. It comes down to the people throwing the garbage into the garbage cans. I've seen some pretty creative ways of people throwing away their garbage, and to me, it's not correct, but I'm more of a type A personality, and I understand that. But at the end of the day, I think the garbage cans that we have now seem to work a lot better than what the old ones are, and I know that's not the debate we're here to talk about tonight, but I just want to stress that it's not McGree's fault 100% of why there's that issue, because the issue that I've dealt with, it wasn't the garbage company that had the problem. Thanks.
Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Just to follow up on that too. So the $106 per year, you get your garbage dumped once a week, and they provide you a garbage can. I didn't know that's how much it was till right now. So that's a great deal. Like all my extra garbage, I put in Mr. Commissioner Morgan's garbage. So it's a great deal. I just want to comment on it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, we're going to open the public hearing and call for proponents. Are there any proponents?
We'll open up the phone lines for communication 2020-290. Doesn't appear to be any, Mr. Chief Executive.
Second call for proponents. Third and final call for proponents.
No calls, Mr. Chief Executive.
No calls, so we'll go for opponents. Are there any opponents? Second call for opponents.
No calls, Mr. Chief Executive.
Third and final call for opponents. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. We'll go on to number 3. Public hearing on resolution number 2020-06. The resolution of intent to amend the zoning regulations to require a conditional use permit in order to maintain a community residential facility in an all residential zone within Silver City and County of Butte-Silver, Montana, and providing for an effective date herein. have a staff report. I don't know if anyone from planning is here. County Attorney Joyce, the honor is yours.
Really? Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. So this public hearing is required as part of the process, and the commissioners voted last time to schedule this public hearing after the zoning commission made their recommendation, and they rejected that recommendation and voted to proceed with this public hearing. So the purpose of the public hearing is to receive comments about whether or not to amend the zoning ordinance to require a special use permit for community residential facilities in all residential zones.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the council before we open the public hearing? I think everyone understands what's going on. We've been through this several times. So. Okay, seeing none, we'll open the public hearing and call for proponents.
Mr. Chief Executive, there doesn't appear to be any calls on the phone. I do have a few letters to read into the record if that's okay. They're all proponents so far in this section.
Go ahead and start reading.
The first one is from Vicki Bergman. Good evening. I'm writing you regarding the importance of changing the ordinance so community residential homes will be required to apply for and receive a special use permit in order to move into the residential neighborhood in Butte. In order for you to understand why this is so important to us, I need to give you a little background. My husband and I live in Houston, Texas. Two of our children, Brent and Kaylee, attended Montana State University. When our son was a freshman at MSU, we purchased a second home in Ennis, Montana. We love it out there, but my husband travels for work, so when we are in Montana, which is about every other month, I am alone out there a lot during the week, which I'm not comfortable with. When we talked about actually retiring to Montana and being there full-time, I told my husband I wanted a home in a city where I could make friends, get my hair cut, and join a church, so we started looking. After going and exploring all the larger cities, we realized Butte was where we wanted to be, so we started looking over a year ago at homes there. We found our beautiful home at 1240 West Platinum and purchased it last December. Right after we closed, I was there decorating and meeting my neighbors. Imagine my surprise and horror when my next-door neighbor told me that she had been duped into almost selling her home to a halfway house. The whole reason we purchased in Butte was so that I could feel safe when my husband was out of town during the week, and we almost bought a house next door to a place where people who had gotten out of jail or rehab would be living, and most wouldn't have cars, so they would be walking back and forth in front of my house every day. I am all for giving people second chances, but I'm sorry we paid a lot of money for our home so that we could live in a safe neighborhood in Butte, and that would have undone everything that we worked towards. Can you imagine how horrible that would have been for us? Zoning is important in all cities, and all we are asking for is multi-person housing to be a commercial part of the city, not a neighborhood with single-family homes. I'm sorry I will not be able to attend the meeting on the 5th. My flight back to Montana is that evening, but please reach out if you'd like to discuss in more detail. Again, that is Vicki Bergman. The next one is from R. Edward Vanderob, 2601 Grand Avenue. I am a proponent when a commercial organization for nonprofit or for-profit or nonprofit that provides goods and services for pay wants to establish an operation in a residential zone, even when the state of Montana law stipulates that a commercial enterprise shall not be treated as a business for zoning purposes. The residents of the neighborhood in which said enterprise wants to establish itself have the right to know what is being located in their neighborhood. In reality, in that Montana state law allows for more stringent requirements as long as they do not conflict with state law, the local people should have the right to stipulate where the residential zone, such as non-business commercial operations, should be located. Foster care has shown just cause why they should be exempted from any such local special use permit requirement. It is my understanding that members of the area's state Montana legislative delegation are working on trying to rectify the disservice done by the Montana state relative to foster homes. But that does not mean we need to kick the can down the road to the state legislature relative to our own local concerns, when a simple amendment exempting foster homes from the local resolution or ordinance will suffice. There is very great difference between foster homes where a foster parent is on duty 24/7 and a proposed group home that proposes to hire a 9-to-5 manager. Again, that one was from R. Edward Vanderhoff. The next one is from Sarah Demoni and others. I'll read their names. Members of the Butte-Silver Bow Council of Commissioners regarding Resolution 2020-06. Please accept this letter in support of Resolution number 2020-06A, Resolution of Intent to amend the zoning regulations, and we support the Council of Commissioners to Resolution number 2020-06A, Resolution of Intent to amend the zoning. We, the signed below residents of Butte-Silver Bow, support changing the ordinance to implement a requirement for a conditional use permit for businesses or organization, nonprofit or for-profit, that are planning to open a community residential home, also be called transitional living centers, treatment houses, developmentally disabled group homes, youth care facilities, residential treatment facilities, who want to either buy or construct a center in a residential area. The reason behind our support is simple. Montana state statute reads that an organization opening a community residential program can be located in any zoned area unless the city or town has a provision for a conditional use permit to be sought, thus giving the control to the local planning departments and governors. Through Commissioner Mankins' proposal, he is requesting that Butte-Silver Bow implement a provision for conditional use permit to be sought when a community residential program plans to locate in Butte-Silver Bow. The intent is to ensure that the appropriate steps are taken for a home to be safely located in Butte-Silver Bow. The most appropriate way to have a community residential homes reviewed for this by conditional use permitting process. This change will add a layer of oversight that is needed in our community. With it, the planning board and the planning department has knowledge of who and in what neighborhood a licensed community residential home will be requesting to locate. We are asking for transparency through the conditional use permitting process, as this will give the neighborhood an opportunity to speak up and communicate concerns for the neighborhood. Additionally, this will open the door for a community residential home and neighbors to talk openly about concerns and develop plans to live safely in harmony of the neighborhood. We would like to be clear that we support all types of community residential programs. We support making sure the areas where they will reside are both appropriate and safe for the community residential program and the people in neighborhoods, and the only way to ensure the peace of mind of potential neighborhoods is with a conditional use permit. Thank you for your time and attention. Signed by the following 75 residents of Butte-Silver Bow: Sarah Demoni, Paul Blumenthal, Andrew Demoni, Miriam Haley, Jocelyn Dodge, Lisa Howell, Noah Thatcher, Ross Richardson, Josh Stearns, Paula McGarvey, Deb Penner, Jean Rawson, Tricia Sothergill, Glenn Sothergill, James Downey, Mary Colleen Hackett, Christy Gentry, Michael Boston, Avis Boston, Richard Rosa, Julie Rosa, Wayne Harper, Colleen Harper, Tawny Harper, Lisa Sessions, Mark Stoffer, Mary Berg, Mark Berg, Hal Hubbard, Julie Hubbard, Tara Tim, Miranda Armstrong, Brian Grinnells, Lynn Grinnells, Ben DeWert, Katie DeWert, John Grinnells, Dorinda Grinnells, Kim Duddy, Jim Duddy, Reggie Daly, Donna Lowney, Cindy West, Roy West, Vicki Bergman, Andy Bergman, Nancy Fritz, Deborah Lynn Hall, Jason Carriger, Joanna Lowney, Barbara Dregovich, Margaret Lowney, Daniel Kelly, Renelle Richardson, Cody Hockaday, Kara Wesson, Paula Merrick, Mark Merrick, Luke Anderson, Tasha Antonelli, Buddy Pressler, Donna Pressler, Doug Mayhew, Kaylee Bergman, Marion Taylor, Cecilia Helming, Gary Helming, First Presbyterian Church, Peggy Dean, Reagan Dean, Helen Patterson, Mike Patterson, Corrine Hash, Gary Wright and Carol Wright. The next one, my name is Doug Mayhew, or this is from Doug Mayhew. My name is Doug Mayhew, and I live at 1250 West Platinum Street in Butte. I support the proposed ordinance requiring a conditional use permit for a community residential facility in all the residential zones within the city and county of Butte-Silver Bow. I believe this proposal is a reasonable accommodation that respects the rights of those recovering from a drug or alcohol addiction as outlined in the Fair Housing Act, as well as the rights of those who have purchased a home in the neighborhood with an R1 single-family residence zoning. Licensed foster homes, addiction recovery houses, and other group homes play an important role in our community. Recovery facilities need to be located in low-crime neighborhoods to foster recovery, and I'm open to such facilities in our quiet, low-crime residential neighborhood, but considering the wide range of ownership and organization structures that may be used for such facilities, I believe there needs to be oversight. A conditional use permit process would provide an appropriate degree of oversight and would assure that our neighborhood's concern and appreciation for the needs of those recovering from drug and alcohol addiction will not become a loophole through which multifamily homes can be established in neighborhood zoned for single-family residences. I think it's worth noting that the conditional use permit is required to locate a home for recovering drug and alcohol abusers in many American communities, including Boulder, Colorado, Spokane County, Costa Mesa, California, North Las Vegas, and others. I believe that Butte-Silver Bow should have such a requirement for all the same reasons these other communities have them, and believe the current proposal is the right approach to protect the rights and the cities, or the rights of the parties involved. Again, that was Doug Mayhew. Mr. Chief Executive, that concludes all the written communication that I received for tonight, and there still apparently is nobody on the phone line.
Okay. Second call for proponents. The third and final call for proponents.
Nobody. Still nobody on the line.
Okay, and we'll move to opponents. Are there any opponents?
Still nobody on the line, but I do have some letters to read into the record as well. There's a call in.
Go to the 16th call for opponents.
Mr. Chief Executive, to whom it may concern, this one is from Gretchen Geller, RN, BA, BSN. I am writing to share my concern about the proposed changes that would require all community residential facilities, including licensed foster care homes, to apply for a conditional use permit from Butte-Silver Bow County. The Planning Board has already suggested that this proposed change be rejected, and I fully agree with the Planning Board's decision. As a former child and adolescent psychiatrist, nurse, and former BSB victim witness advocate, I am very concerned about the potential consequences of allowing the location of foster homes in our county be made public. Thank you for considering my concern. Again, Gretchen Geller. The next one is from Carla Pomrecki on Princeton Street. Hi, I'm writing to urge you to support the Planning Board's vote to reject the proposal to require additional zoning permit for group homes. Please do not let unfounded, unsubstantiated fears make you think it is necessary. These group homes are licensed and vetted by the state. The additional permit would be housing discrimination. It reminds me of past history in the USA when zoning rules were used to discriminate against minorities moving into traditionally white neighborhoods. I hope Butte will not ignore the lessons learned from our country's history. And again, Carla Pomrenke. The next one is from the Montana Fair Housing, Pam Bean, the Executive Director. Dear Mayor Palmer and Council of Commissioners, Montana Fair Housing is a private, nonprofit organization addressing discrimination in housing across the state. Our work is completed via our education and outreach efforts, dispute resolution services, and when necessary, through investigation and informant activities. Our office has been watching the development of the proposed zoning changes. Our hope was that Council could resolve its concerns in a manner that would avoid adverse effects on the community's efforts to provide safe housing for vulnerable populations, including children and persons with disabilities. The proposed zoning change appears to overlook the need for confidentiality in serving these populations, their need for safe and stable housing, and the need to provide housing opportunities in a manner that does not have a disparate impact against protected class households and household members. Households providing care for children through foster care face potential risks that arise in public disclosure of the location. The commitment these households make in caring for children at a risk is immeasurable. For themselves and other household members, requiring these households to open themselves and their families to unnecessary safety risks is different treatment than the city would expect of other households. In addition, the safety and security of children placed in their care will be compromised through public disclosure requirements. The public nature of the application for a conditional use permit will lead to a loss of security for these households and likely a drop in future participants in the foster care program. Youth care in a group home, shelter, or transitional living is defined at MCA 76-2-412 as residential use for the purpose of zoning if 8 or fewer persons reside at the site. Requiring a CUP for these households potentially imposes different terms and conditions on the households versus other similarly situated households in the community. For persons suffering from drug and alcohol addiction, the supportive environment is an interim step on the path to sobriety where addicts can live in a supervised and sober environment with structure and rules. By living in this type of setting, the residents receive a therapeutic benefit that ameliorates the effects of alcoholism and substance abuse. Sober living houses serve as an interim environment between rehab and a return to their former lives. SLHS exists because of the need to have safe and supportive places to live while in recovery and are primarily meant to provide housing for people who have just come out of rehab or recovery centers. As persons with disabilities, the Federal Fair Housing Act and the Montana Human Rights Act provide protections to ensure that the population does not experience discrimination solely because of having a disability. The acts further prohibit the release of information about the person's disability. The public nature of a conditional use permit application process may violate the need to protect this information and imposes different terms and conditions on households versus other households in the community. It is unclear how a conditional use permit is necessary to maintain a home providing services to populations in need as described in 76-2-412 Section 1. Section 4 states 76-2-412 may not be construed to prohibit a city or county from requiring a conditional use permit in order to maintain a home pursuant to the provisions of subsection 1 if the home is licensed by the Department of Public Health and Human Services. While this section obviously allows for the city to implement a CUP application process, it does not require it. Implementing a CUP application requirement would seem of importance only in an effort to discourage households caring for children at risk and or persons with disabilities from residing in the community of Butte. And that, again, was from Pam Bean, the Executive Director of Montana Fair Housing. The next one is from Geraldine Driscoll. I am opposed to requiring conditional use zoning permits for group or foster homes to locate in areas zoned residential. Besides personally opposing such a policy decision, I also question whether BSB has the legal authority to require community residential facilities to obtain conditional use permits to locate in the residential zones. BSB should review 76-2-412, which on its face appears to statutorily establish that a community residential facility is residential use and cannot be zoned out of a residential neighborhood. BSB should also review Title 49 of the MCA, which also appears to prohibit a county from using zoning to preclude people with disabilities from residing in any neighborhood. The next one is from Lacey Raymond, LCSW. My concerns regarding zoning ordinance change 180 involve the fact that it encompasses licensed foster homes. Making foster families address public information will potentially jeopardize the safety of the kids they have in their care as well as their own families. I see this as being a potential barrier to families becoming foster families. In addition, the zoning ordinance would add additional steps for foster families to become licensed, and this also presents a barrier. The next one is from Cassandra Jangula. To whom it may concern, I am writing in reference to Communication 19-466. It's like the night of the loudest mufflers up here, just so everybody knows. I'm against requiring a conditional use permit for residential facilities. Thank you for taking the time to consider that I have to say on this matter. I am highly against implementing this, especially since kinship and foster care homes will be included. I have several reasons why this would be an undue hardship on foster care providers. The first is that foster care parents do not provide... Commissioner Anderson, can you mute your microphone? The first is that the foster care parents do not provide this care in a building outside of their home. Making them post a sign in their yard as well as the newspaper gives people access to not only their names but their home addresses. This would violate the privacy of not only the families but also the children. A lot of foster care providers are also professionals in the community and would not like to have their addresses posted for everyone to have access to. Some examples of this are doctors, therapists, and nurses. It is important for foster parents to have some sense of privacy as well. This opens up the kids to be harassed in the neighborhood. A lot of the foster care children are embarrassed that they are in a foster care and miss their families. If kids in the neighborhood tease them, it would have detrimental effects to their healing process. These children are also entitled to privacy. By following everyone to know where every foster home is, you open the door for disgruntled parents across the board to be able to take out their anger and frustration. Just because their child is not in that home doesn't mean they won't cause problems for a foster care home in retaliation. This also would allow parents to find the location of their children. If they were unaware, sometimes the parents know the name of the people taking care of their children, but not their home address. This is a safety concern for the families and the children involved. Putting this into place will deter future foster parents from being willing to help children. We are already in need of more foster families, and this could have a detrimental impact on our community. These children need loving and caring homes to help them heal until they can either be safely returned or able to find permanent through adoption. Who will be responsible for the fee? The foster parent. These families already pay to make sure that every need and want is covered for that children. They have to have clothes, beds, dressers, toys, access to medical, schooling, school supplies, extracurricular activities, food, child care, behavioral health, gas to get to appointments, etc. Adding more fees so they can take care of children is unreasonable. Conditional use permits cannot be denied. It was stated in a meeting that often the cost of the city is more than the money that is brought in for the conditional use permit. The cost of the newspaper ad, putting the board in the yard, and then to hold the meeting outweighs the $100 fee that the person is required to pay. Why cost the county money and cause people such distress for something that cannot be denied? This doesn't make any sense for the county financially either. It should be a primary objective for our community to keep children safe. However, the proposition opens the door for children to be discriminated against in the neighborhoods and at schools, violates their privacy, and causes more harm than good. I encourage the Council of Commissioners to accept the Planning Board's recommendation and not vote this zone ordinance in. The safety of our at-risk children should be the number one priority. The next one is from Cameron Hunter. My name is Cameron Hunter. I reside at 2030 Adams Avenue. My husband and I have been licensed foster parents for 15 years. It was Carmen Hunter. I'm writing to voice my concerns about the proposed ordinance before you today. I believe that requiring foster parents and kinships families to obtain a conditional use permit would harm our community. Requiring this permit would expose foster families and their children needlessly. As a part of the application process, the family would need to publish and post their intent to become foster parents. At this point, every neighbor and their children will know the kids in that house are foster kids. Imagine that this would be like a preteen or teen. The moment the child steps into the foster home, every parent in the neighborhood knows their world is falling apart. Now imagine how fast that information would travel from the neighborhood to the school. Through many biological families do not go to great lengths to find their kids. Some do. Making the addresses of foster parents a matter of public record makes it much easier for dangerous situations to arise and more difficult for foster families to keep children safe. I also believe this will deter families from becoming licensed foster parents in the future. This ordinance also would be an added burden to kinship families. Most of the children in the foster care system in Butte live with a relative. Many live with a grandparent on fixed income. When a relative takes in a child but does not have a foster care license, they are not reimbursed for the child's care like a foster parent. The added cost of a permit is huge when grandma is trying to provide for her grandkids in the days, weeks, and months following placement. Getting your license takes 6 to 12 months right now. I believe this ordinance is nothing more than people's need to know what the neighbors are doing, legitimized snooping. It does nothing to prevent any facility from going into a neighborhood, but does expose, humiliate, and shame the most vulnerable members of our community. Passing this ordinance as it is, grandfathering in or not enforcing it for foster families, is a pathetic attempt to quiet the ones who advocate for kids while satisfying people's need to be in the know. Please do what is right for our children and vote no. Thank you, Carmen Hunter. Next one is from Amalinda Olson. Commissioners, I'm writing today to tell you I oppose zoning ordinance change 180. I first heard this from a friend that fosters 3 children. This change makes her and her family a target, not only from potentially dangerous parents wanting their children back, but to just ordinary neighbors. People with disabilities, on welfare, sex offenders, high-income families, to name some examples, do not have to advertise their personal businesses in their front yard. Being a foster parent is personal. They are providing normalcy to their foster children. Some become adopted and should not have been made to feel different, advertised, or potentially made fun of. The idea of the foster care as a business is ridiculous. Yes, the parents receive a stipend, but in no way is this an income. Please vote no for this ordinance. Again, Amalinda Olson. The next one is from Chris Hunter. My name is Chris Hunter. My address is 2030 Adams. Did I already read this one? Oh, okay. 2030 Adams in Butte. This is to address a proposal to have foster and kinship care families request a conditional use permit. I am so strongly against this for numerous reasons. I'm currently a foster parent. My wife and I have been for 15 years. It is none of any of our neighbors' business to know this information. We house children who enter into care or are removed from their parents and caregivers' homes because of dangerous circumstances. This removal constitutes a traumatic experience that is difficult to fully recover from for the rest of their lives. You are needlessly adding to their trauma by having it publicized whose residence they are now going into. Can you imagine this happening to you or your children? Would you like that information or that public information? No, you would not. Please do not do this to these kids. Requiring families who take in children and pay a fee is also an insular burden on these people. It is an emotional time for them as well. Most of us are not well-to-do people who can just pay a nominal fee for everything. You are essentially imposing a tax on us for doing a good, deep reading it and helping a child in their time of crisis. There is so much more I could say, but I am also sure that you are hearing from many of my peers. I am shocked and horrified that our city council representatives would go against the wishes of an earlier panel and continue to push this through. Just because other cities are doing doesn't make it the right thing to do. Also, just grandfathering those already doing this or saying that those already licensed don't have to pay the fee is ridiculous and merely a means to trying to shut up those who oppose this ordinance. Please represent all of your community members, especially those who are experiencing traumas in their lives. Thank you for your time. Chris Hunter. The next one is from Elizabeth Lowney, LCPC. I'm writing to you both as a clinician and a foster parent in Silver Bow County in regards to zoning ordinance change 180. Speaking as a clinician, I strongly believe that this change would be detrimental to our foster care system and foster children. In the matter of the conditional use permit, this gives foster families more steps on top of an already lengthy process in order to become licensed and foster children that are in need of good homes. Foster families often take children in though the desire to help and the goodness of their hearts. Though there are subsidies for foster children, they do not begin to cover the increase in financial strain that adding a child can bring to a home. To add a fee on top of that would be to create more financial hardships for these families who are trying to do their best to give children what they need. With the additional steps and financial obligation, I am certain that this would deter others from continuing or applying to foster a care provider. This is a significant issue, and there is already a shortage of available homes. Zoning ordinance change 180 also poses a safety threat to our foster families and children in the foster care, as well as possibly those in treatment. Information become a matter of public record would be open to the possibility of lack of the ability to keep individuals and families safe. Most children enter the system because they have been removed due to trauma of some sort. This may be in the form of neglect or abuse of several different kinds. If information is public record, this opens the doors for abusers to retaliate against foster families who are caring for their children. This also opens the possibility of abduction and further traumatization of children from their abusers. Many biological families and or abusers do not know the addresses of where their children are. Some do not even know the names of their foster parents. Making this information a matter of public record would give that information to anyone who would want to harm foster families or children in care. This could also make homes a great target for sexual offenders or pedophiles, as they would know the addresses of where vulnerable children are residing. It is our responsibility to keep the families and children in our community safe, and this change would prevent that. As an adopted mother to a previous foster child, these changes makes me fear for safety of my child. My child was placed in care of myself and my husband at the time of birth. Her biological parents are not stable. Her biological father had threatened to abduct her from the hospital and blow up the CPS office. Her mother is mentally unstable and has delusions of getting all of her children back. Making our information a matter of public record would make it easier for my child's biological parents to find her and try to take her or cause us harm. With this in mind, I would not be able to continue to be licensed as a foster parent in order to protect the safety of my child. In conclusion, I am in strong belief that zoning ordinance change 180 would be dangerous for our community. It would decrease safety for vulnerable children and families that lead to decrease the number of foster families available to our children in most need. Please take all of these significant issues into consideration on making a decision regarding zoning ordinance change 180, and that's from Elizabeth Lowney. The next one is from Jacqueline Berggren, Butte resident. I am writing in reference to Communication 19-466. I'm against requiring a conditional permit for residential facilities for several reasons. I don't think I read this one already. First, individual licensed foster homes are included in the zoning ordinance change 180. Licensed foster families and any licensed kinship families will be required to get a conditional use permit, which will deter new families from moving forward to be licensed. There's already a huge need in our community for foster families. Children in foster care from our community of Butte are having to relocate to foster homes outside of Butte because there is not enough families available to care for them. Several foster families have spoken out that this will be a privacy and safety issue for their family and the children in their care. Having names and addresses listed in public record that is easily accessible is a huge infringement on individuals' families' privacies. In previous meetings, it has been mentioned that a sandwich board will need to be placed on the residential facilities lawn. This board is to include names, addresses, and types of a residential facility. Again, this infringes on the privacy of foster families as well as easily identifies children in the foster children. This could lead to embarrassment, shame, and greater mental health issues for our community's already vulnerable children. It is my understanding that a conditional use permit cannot be denied. If this statement is true, then it seems that it is only prolonging the process in hopes to deter residential facilities. Again, if we care about the children in foster care in our community, why would we want to deter families from getting licensed to foster because they fear the lack of privacy and safety the conditional use permit will bring? It is clear that the definition of residential facilities needs to be amended so that licensed foster homes are not included before zoning ordinance 180 is approved. I fear zoning ordinance 180 will negatively impact a greater population than it will actually serve. In participating in the public hearings, it has been made obvious the zoning ordinance change 180 was made in haste and has not taken into consideration how it will actually affect licensed foster families and the children they care for. I've even heard it said at the public meetings that residents are concerned how having a residential facility will impact the value of their home. While I understand this concern, I find it sad that the thought of financial gain trumps the personal and emotional safety to others. To those who argue that it will actually keep these families and children more safe, I contend that you have not considered the lack of privacy these families will receive and how children in foster care will be easily identified and impacted emotionally. Out of consideration for Butte's vulnerable children and those caring for them, I ask that you please vote against zoning change number 180. Again, Jacqueline Bergman. The next one is from Gabriel Offit. Let's see. My name is Gabriel Offit, and I reside at my home at 927 South Colorado Street here in Butte. I hope I am not too late to have my voice heard, and apologize that I have written, as I haven't written before. My concern with this ordinance change is that, as it is explained to me, it would require foster parents charged with the welfare and safety of foster children to publicly advertise their whereabouts and those of children they are trying to protect as a matter of public record. This poses a serious safety concern, as often the entire point of placing a child in foster care is to separate him or her from a dangerous situation. It is clear that if the point of foster care system is to remove children from those who would do harm, publicly advertising to those individuals where they can find those children seems foolhardy at the best. Please consider these children in the dangerous, perhaps life-threatening position you are placing them in if you decide they must be publicly advertised in the paper. You are considering creating an advertising section in the newspaper for stalkers and predators. Please ensure that you weigh the verbiage of this and any changes to law with a mind towards the most vulnerable of our community. Thank you for your consideration. Mr. Chief Executive, that appears to be all the hearing or the communication that I've received, and there's still nobody on the line.
We have a second call for opponents. Third and final call for opponents.
Nobody on there, Mr. Chief Executive.
And for the record, I just want to mention that we did have that earlier call, and Bud Pressler called in, but I believe he was on that signature list for being in favor of this proposal. Seeing no other opponents, I'll close the public hearing on Resolution 2020-06. We'll go to the public hearing on Resolution 2020-36. The joint resolution creating the Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority for the purpose of providing for the preservation and improvement of abandoned rail service in southern Montana. This was another one where we had the request for a public hearing to go over this joint resolution on the creation of the Big Sky Passenger Rail. Are there any comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Frederickson?
My only comment would be to address that previous gentleman's concerns. I understand that the rail on the East Ridge there's houses there that have been up since it's been abandoned. But this is just to create the authority and, possibly look at bringing passenger rail service back to Montana. And it would be more than likely if this did happen, that Butte would, the route would be coming up from the south and not over the East Ridge. I've been up there, I've driven around and looked at the rail, and I've hiked Modest Canyon up there, and I don't think there's any possibility really that line could be restored. And now we have a bunch of houses right next to the railroad. So I just wanted to make that comment on the gentleman's concerns. And sorry, I didn't have a chance to write down his name. So if he's listening, that's just what I wanted to say. So thank you.
All right, so I'm going to open the public hearing on Commissioner Olson.
Thank you, Chief Executive Palmer. I also want to kind of comment a little bit on it too. I think that even though the one person doesn't want us to get involved, I think it's important for Butte-Silver, since we're on the link that might come back to life, to have a seat at the table from the beginning, so that we can weigh the pros and cons of both sides, and I'm going to say not have this ramrodded through by other counties that want to get this done. I'm in favor of having it done. I wouldn't want coal trains and oil trains running in my backyard, but I think this is pretty much passenger rail. Maybe one train every couple days, probably pretty quiet too. That's just my comment. Thank you.
Thanks for the comments, but I just want to remind the council that this is a public hearing and we're not to be commenting on comments that we received during a public hearing. There's the time later for discussing whatever comments we get, but during the public hearing process, it's not the time. So if there's no other statement, open the public hearing and call for proponents.
Mr. Chief Executive, there doesn't appear to be anybody on the phone line, but I do have some more letters to read.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Morgan.
The first one, Mr. Chief Executive, looks like it's from Joyce Daniels. To whom it may concern, my roommate Joyce Daniels and I want to let you know that the bringing back passenger service to southern Montana is a perfect idea because it will create an additional form of transportation, not just for local residents, but will bring in people from other parts of the country to visit, increasing economic growth with new business and jobs. A definite plus in our minds. I apologize, Joyce Daniels. The next one is from Nathan Hunt. Thank you for your time. I don't believe a public... Oh, that's a pro, and I'll go back to that one later. The next one is from Brenda Isaacson. I would like to express my interest in the railroad coming our direction again. This would be a great addition to Butte and would help in the transportation area. The train is such an easy way to travel, and Montana is a beautiful place to see from the train windows. I know I would support rail travel in our area. Please consider this request and place rail travel in southwestern area of Montana. The next one is from Frank Snyder. Dear Commissioners, well, here we go again. Will they toss us aside like an old shoe? A little about the background. When we built the old terminal, Bozeman had also an old building, but they built a terminal building that was an airport with loading ramps. The airlines then moved into Bozeman. We should have the passenger service with trains. We have a very nice terminal building for trains. Helen, as far as I know, does not. As for the track from Three Forks to Pipestone is used by BNSF to haul rock from Pipestone. The track from Pipestone is the edge of Butte, could be worked over and put back into use. Back in the 30s, the president formed the CCC camps and did a lot of work on many projects. We have people getting money. They could then be put to work upgrading the railroad tracks. When the interstate was put in Denver, it was small, but they had the crossroads and grew very fast to a large city. What happened to Butte? We should be larger than we are. I get tired of Butte being put down. We should have many businesses here. In the news on TV, Bozeman House cost twice that in Butte. Should we move here with businesses to help our town? I know some people that have homes near the tracks will say no, but also people build near the airport and want the planes to stop flying because of the noise. I live near the highway and hear traffic, but I don't complain. Please see what can be done to bring the trains back to Butte. Mr. Chief Executive, that's all that I have.
Okay. We'll go to second call for proponents.
Mr. Chief Executive, doesn't appear to be anybody.
Okay, third and final call for proponents.
Phone lines are open. Phone lines are open.
See none, we'll go to opponents. Are there any opponents?
Doesn't appear on the phone right now. I do have a letter to read. Thank you for your time. I don't believe this is from Nathan Hunt. I don't believe public rail service would be an appropriate use of funding for the Butte area, especially in this socially distancing time we are living in. In my opinion, I don't think people would choose to use a passenger rail service as a source of public transportation enough to pursue any costs associated with implementing it. Montana highway system works well, gas is reasonable, and I don't see people choosing to place themselves in a confined area with large groups of unknown people unnecessarily. There are multiple homes along the existing abandoned railway that would be in direct contact with the train service if the existing track was reestablished. This would raise an extreme safety concern for all those who have children within a stone's throw of the track. I think a better use of the track would be to abandon it and in turn into a walking or biking path. In doing so, you could connect the gorgeous Continental Divide Trail system through Modest Canyon to Skyline Park through the Butte Chamber Trail system, all the way to Rocker and Ramsey, and the eventual plan to Anaconda. This connection would not only help to beautify Butte, but also promote a healthy lifestyle and hobbies that can be done outside while maintaining appropriate social distancing, but could have something that many other towns could only dream of, and it's right here in our backyard. We just have to connect it all together. I think a walking bike trail system using the existing track would better serve the community and our people. And that concludes all the written correspondence that I've received. And doesn't appear...
Second call for opponents.
Doesn't appear to be anybody on the phone line.
Okay, third and final call for opponents. And before I close the public hearing, I just want to reference the one person that called in. I didn't catch his name, but he lived on Shorty Way. He was an opponent. So I'll close the public hearing, and we'll go to...
His name was Gary Garwood.
Gary Garwood. Thank you. Okay, well, petition number 2020-01. Patrick Reardon, Land Systems Administrator, requesting Council and Commissioners authorize the petition close and vacate a platted public alleyway. It's been filed with the Land Systems Division of the Planning Department as provided for within ordinance number 362. Do we have a presentation on this petition? Patrick on the call tonight? County Attorney Joyce, do you have an update on this?
Mr. Chief Executive, I think the recommendation to refer it to Public Works is the appropriate recommendation so that they can discuss it and schedule a public hearing. And after the public hearing, the council will decide whether or not it's in the best interest to go ahead and close this alleyway.
Okay. Commissioner Morgan would like to make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I make a motion that we refer petition 2020-01 to the Public Works Department.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded to refer petition 2020-01 to the Public Works Department. Is there any, is that to the department or the committee?
Committee.
Committee. So it's going to the Public Works Committee. Is there anything on the question? Will everyone please vote? Anyone wishing to change their vote?
I wasn't able to vote.
Commissioner Mann?
1 second, Mr. Chief Executive, on the vote.
We don't have a poll up, Chief Executive.
There you go. You should have it.
Okay. Will everyone please vote? Anyone wishing to change their vote?
Looks like we're just
record the vote
for one. Yeah. Mr. Chief Executive, it looks like we have 12 yeas, 0 nay.
Motion carries. Next, we'll go to section 2, the consent agenda. A, 1 through 4, committee reports, and B, communications 1 through 19. Are there any friendly amendments or segregations? Commissioner Morgan?
The 2 communications we added tonight isn't...
We'll do them after the consent agenda.
Okay, all right. Sorry.
Commissioner Fisher?
Thank you, Chief Executive Palmer. I know it's a long night, but I do have some segregation. So I would like to segregate communication number 3, 2020-310. Communication number 9, 2020-317. Communication number 12, 2020-320. Communication number 13, 2020-321. Communication number 14, 2020-322. Thank you.
Are there any other segregations? Seeing none, Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. At this time, I make a motion that we approve Section 2, the consent agenda. A, the committee reports 1 through 4. B, communications 1 through 19, with the exclusion of number 3, 20-310, number 9, 20-317, number 12, 20-320, number 13, 20-321, and number 14, 20-322. Commissioner Fisher, if you could just verify those.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Committee reports A 1 through 4, communications 1 through 19, exclusive of number 3, number 9, number 12, number 13, number 14. Is there anything on the question? Will everyone please vote? Anyone wishing to change their vote? Will the clerk please record the vote?
Mr. Chief Executive, we have 12 yeas, 0 nay.
Motion carries. Go to number communication B3, 2020-310. Dave Palmer, Chief Executive, requesting Council Commissioners to accept this letter. It's my formal request for your concurrence in the following appointment to the Butte Natural Resource Damage Council. John says so. Commissioner Fisher. You're on mute, Jim.
Thank you, Chief Executive Palmer. I respect your appointments, and I have nothing against any of these appointments that you have. I just think that our community is in need of change, and I think a lot of these advisory committees and things like that are where things start. And so with communication number 2020-310, I feel John Sesso served our community well. I respect his knowledge. I respect what he did for our community, but I do think it's a good time for a change. So at this time, I would make a motion to deny communication 2020-310.
Motion dies for the lack of a second. Anyone like to make a motion?
I made a motion to, I think we can vote.
Pardon me?
Motion was denied. I voted to deny. It failed, so we move on to the next one, don't
Right. Yeah, well, we have to, the motion dies because of a lack of a second, so we wait for another motion to do something with this communication.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Shaw.
You're on mute.
You're on mute. There you go.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. At this time, I move to approve communication 2020-310 to concur and place it on file.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded to approve the request in communication 2020-310 and place communication on file. Is there anything on the question? Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chief Executive. I just got back on. I don't know what happened at all, so I don't know. I'm sorry to be the...
Okay, well, Commissioner Fisher segregated communication 2020-310 and recommended it's time for a change in personnel on some of these advisory committees, get some new blood out there. He made a motion to deny the communication, the request in the communication, and it died for the lack of a second. Commissioner Shaw made a motion to concur in the request in communication 2020-310, place the communication on file. That's where we're at now, waiting for a vote.
Thank you.
Anything else on the question? Will everyone please vote? Anyone wishing to change their vote? Clerk, record the vote. It looks like there's 11 yes and 1 no. Motion carries.
Who didn't vote, Mr. Chief Executive?
Pardon me?
Oh, looks like 11 yea, 1 nay. Okay.
Are we good?
Yes.
Okay, next was communication number 9. Communication 2020-317. Dave Palmer, Chief Executive, requesting Council of Commissioners to accept my letter as a formal request for your review and authorization of the Chief Executive to sign the Montana State University Fiscal Year 2021 Extension Services Agreement. Butte-Silver will contribute funds for the support of the extension work in agriculture and natural resources, family and consumer sciences, 4-H, and related fields. Commissioner Fisher.
Once again, thank you, Chief Executive Palmer. I appreciate your acceptance of this, but we had that big discussion at Debico, last time they had that 4-H thing, and I don't recall ever seeing a 4-H agent or anyone come to the council and give us any information since that happened. And I know there's still some discontent. We didn't have the fair this year, so it didn't go as bad, but I don't see any reason to continue going on with this if we can't get anything from Bozeman or our local agent to come visit the council. So I would make a motion at this time to deny communication 2020-317.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded to deny the request in 2020-317. Place the communication on file. Is there anything on the question? Before we go to the question, I'd just like to state that there has been some changes in personnel, and Kelly has been the 4-H agent here for a while now. But I don't know if she knows that she should be coming to the council with a report on what's going on. But I can certainly ask her if you would like to hold this in abeyance, and she can come in and talk before you deny this. I don't know what would happen if we do deny it, and then but it's up to the council. So unless County Attorney Joyce wants to weigh in. Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you, Chief Executive.
You're muted,
Sorry, I thought I unmuted. I double tapped it. If I would make that in a form of a motion to hold this for a week and have Kelly come and give a presentation before council.
Second.
Second. The substitute motion. So we have a substitute motion made and seconded to hold this in abeyance for 1 week and have Kelly come and give a presentation before you take action on this communication. Is there anything on the question? Commissioner Olson?
Thank you, Chief Executive. I think that's a good idea, but I think 1 week might be too soon for somebody to put together a report cold for what they've done in the past year. She probably would be willing to do that. Just as kind of an offshoot, my office is just down the hall from the county extension agent, and she seems to have folks in her office all the time. Again, it's the 4-H folks that are doing it. We don't have a horticulturist anymore from the county extension, so that's just a thought. But I would think we should extend it by a couple weeks, maybe, to allow more time for Kelly to prepare something.
Commissioner McDonough? You're not coming through, Brendan.
Brendan, you're muted. Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive.
Now you're muted.
You're still muted. There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
Now, can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. So, for clarification, it'll be only on the hook to Butte-Silver for half of this salary for this position.
Mrs. Gleason, you have an answer to that?
Yes, it is only half of the salary, and it's based on, as other counties, it's based on a percentage of the clerk recorder's salary, and then half of that. So we roughly spend about $35,000 towards this, and then give her some office supplies, pretty minimal. I think to add to, I think we always focus on the fact that this is extension, meaning she does only fair work, but they also do a lot of SNAP education and health and nutrition classes. So it's not, so it'd be a great idea to have her come before you so she can explain all the functions that she provides the county.
Follow up, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I know that we had issues several years ago with trying to get through hard feelings and how people felt and whether this position was needed or not. But I feel personally that the work that the extension agent provides us and what we receive from MSU through their extension agent services is well worth the money. I think the concerns that we've had in the past have been resolved, and yeah, we probably need a report or an update, but at this time I'd like to make a motion to this current placement.
I'll second that.
Is that a motion to end all motions, Brendan?
Yeah.
We have a motion made and seconded to concur in the request in 2020-317, place the communication on file. So this is the third motion. We'll vote on this one first. Is there anything on the question?
Yes, please.
For storage.
Thank you, Chief Executive Palmer. You know, I know there's been some issues and different problems going on within the MSU extension, but I believe that the current extension agent, Kelly Kahani, she's making great strides. They're really growing a brand new 4-H group. Last year the fair, they did very well. This year they did hold their own small sale again. With the COVID, it was kind of a challenge. But I can say that she is working hard, and they are growing in leaps and bounds with the numbers. They're really coming back strong. I think she's doing a great job for her community. I full-heartedly support this. I'm sure if we asked Kelly to come forward, she would be more than glad to do it, but I believe she's doing a great job for her community.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? The question, Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I, too, am okay going forward with this because I know that there are a multitude of valuable services that are provided outside of just 4-H. But I would like to have her come and do a presentation in the next few weeks just so she can shine a little light on her department and show the community what good work she's doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else on the question? And if this motion passes, I will have her come and give a presentation in a couple of weeks so she can update the council. We will vote on the motion to concur and place on file. Will everyone please vote? Anyone wishing to change their vote? Will the clerk record the vote? It was 10 yea and 2 nay. Motion carries. Next is number 12, Communication 2020.
Chief Executive Palmer.
Yes.
Very sorry to interrupt you. Thank you, sir. Sorry to interrupt you. I just had a message that I have somebody that's been on hold for the past hour and as he tried to call in, he gets transferred to another phone line and it won't pick up. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It's maybe some issues with the phone lines.
I wonder if he's calling, what number he's calling. Is he calling the 497-5009, do you know?
Yes. Let me clarify that. Again, don't know where to go with that. In fact, he says he's still on hold.
Jason, is there any way you can tell if someone's on hold on that phone?
We're looking into it right now, Mr. Chief Executive.
Okay.
Thank you.
Executive Palmer, also there's another just email that came in also that there's another gentleman that's very frustrated. I've had 3 now, that same exact number that I've been texting and saying that phone. The email reads, my wife was on the telephone on hold for an hour and a half and never got through. This is how you listen to people. Just very concerned citizen. So that's just one of 3 that I've just have received in the last 40 minutes.
Very well.
Is there people on there?
Not our intent to put anybody off here. So we're checking the phone now and see.
Mr. Chief Executive, it looks like there's people on the phone now. Right? Well,
okay. Well, let's pause here and go back and listen to the phone calls, and then we'll attach them to whatever public hearing they're calling in about. Or
hold on, Mr. Chief Executive. I'll go to the phones right now.
Chief Executive, I just got a similar message from the person who called in earlier, buddy, who called in earlier.
Okay.
Thank you for calling the Butte-Silver Borough Council of Commissioners meeting. We apologize. Can you please state your name and address and what communication you were calling in to talk about?
My name's Pat Noonan at 2913 State Street, and I was calling about the conditional use permit for therapeutic homes.
Hello, Pat. Go ahead.
Hello. Yes, sorry about this. I was trying to get through there. It was kind of an odd loop to get stuck in. But, as I had listened to the proponents and even discussions with council members, and there's that this is something to allow to start a discussion, and so that people in neighborhoods would be in the know. But I would say that what you have in front of you is not that. That the conditional use permit is not for starting a discussion or for not allowing people to be in the know. It's the ability to say no. And so maybe this permit, you're trying to target a specific group of people, but as it stands right now, you're discriminating against the developmentally disabled, children and adults struggling with mental illness. You're discriminating against children in foster care. And so, and honestly, if a family is generous enough to open their home to a foster child, it's none of their neighbor's business. And quite frankly, a person with a developmental disability or a child struggling with a mental illness or a kid in foster care deserve the exact same opportunities that everybody else gets in the community. They should get the same opportunity to go to the same schools, to live in the same neighborhoods, to seek out the same jobs, and they also deserve the right to receive treatment in their community close to their families and support networks. And so Butte-Silver Bow recently passed a very progressive and historic non-discrimination ordinance. And I would say in the spirit of passing that ordinance, that the council should maybe look at options and try to be progressive and not regressive. So instead of trying to pass a law that's going to discriminate against all of these folks, maybe look into doing something like a healthcare corridor and maybe incentivize these different businesses. So if you're a doctor who wants to start a private practice, or you're a dentist, or you're a therapist, or you want to start a treatment home, or you want to have a foster care facility, that you're incentivized to come to Butte and to help the economic development in a certain area of town. I think that would be a step that is far better than going down a road of discrimination that is going to wind you up with lawsuits. And economic development, community service, and safe neighborhoods are not mutually exclusive. They all work together with each other to make the neighborhoods better. And quite frankly, Butte was founded on diversity and a willingness to accept all different kinds of people. And so this seems very opposite of the very ordinance that this community passed not that long ago for non-discrimination. And so I would even say, research the health care corridor in Billings. They've had very awesome results. The last article I read said over the last 5 years, there was a 35% increase to home values because of their health care corridor. And so I don't want to waste any more of your time. I am sorry I'm late. I will leave you with that, but I think that this council could come up with far better and more inclusive ideas than what you have in front of you right now, and I would hope that you do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. Noonan, and we apologize if you were waiting on the phone for a period of time trying to get through. Hopefully we have got that corrected, and we'll listen to the rest of the comments now.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Is there anybody else on the phone line?
Nope.
Nope.
Does not appear to be. Okay, yeah.
Mr. Chief Executive, there doesn't appear to be anybody else on the phone line. Give me a second to regroup here. Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I'm ready to go.
Okay. So there's no other comments on the phone this time?
Not at this time.
Okay. And we'll go back to communication number 12, communication 2020-320. Dave Palmer, Chief Executive, requests Council of Commissioners to accept this letter.
Excuse me, Dave. We hadn't finished on communication number 9 yet.
I thought we had. Okay. I thought we had just taken the vote and it was 10 to 2.
Correct.
In favor, 10 in favor and 2 against. The motion carries. So in that communication, the contract will be renewed, and I will ask Kelly to come in a couple of weeks and make a report to the council. So number 12, communication 2020-320. Dave Palmer, Chief Executive, requesting Council of Commissioners to accept this letter as my formal request for your concurrence in the following appointment to the Historic Preservation Commission. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Palmer. Once again, I respect your appointment, but in this case, I have no qualms with Mitzi Roseland being on Historic Preservation. I just think the citizens of Butte-Silver are looking for change, and these are the committees where we started. So I would make a motion at this time to deny communication 2020-320.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded to deny the request in communication 2020-320 and place the communication on file. Is there anything on the question? Just for the record, I just want to state that, when I make these recommendations for appointments to boards, I have put requests out in the newspaper for people to contact my office, and they put them on the list for particular boards that they might want to serve on. And if I don't get anybody who actually requests to serve on a board, for instance, the Historic Preservation Commission, I talk to the Historic Preservation Officer or whoever's in charge of that board and ask for their recommendation, who they would like. And she had asked if Mitzi could continue on the board. So that's how we come about with that. But we'll go back to the question at hand. Is there anything on the question? Commissioner Callahan. You're muted, Dan. There you go.
Thanks, Chief Executive Palmer. I would just like to put a couple cents in myself. This appointment for Mitzi, you're never going to find anybody that works harder at that position than Mitzi does. And to turn around and try to deny her because you think you want her blood, I guess my suggestion would be maybe if you attend a few of their meetings and see what they do and see how hard these people work and what they're trying to do, maybe you might have a different opinion on what they're doing. Someone like Mitzi is definitely recommended for that board and does a wonderful job. So I just thought I'd let you know. Thank you.
Commissioner Fisher and then Commissioner McDonald.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Chief Executive Palmer. Thank you, Mr. Callahan, Commissioner Callahan, for your input. I don't know where you get that I have any ill regard towards or anything. I just think it's good time for change in our community. If you look at anything that the studies show, the article in the newspaper, everyone in town saying they'd like a little change. And these advisory committees and these type of committees, this is where it starts. They've got as much to do with it as we as councilmen being the legislative branch. So I appreciate your input and thank you.
Commissioner McDonough.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. My opinion with this is that it's a thankless position, but lots of positions in Butte-Silver that you volunteer for can be thankless. I would rather have a seat filled with somebody who's interested in the position than have a vacant board seat. And I know a lot of people want change or say they want change, but until they put their name forward or make the initiative to do it themselves, which they haven't, then it's not going to change. So this is citizen driven. If somebody's out there that's interested in getting on these boards, here's the wake-up call, in my opinion, to put your name forward, get out there, and put a letter into Chief Executive Palmer's office for these vacancies as they come up. Has always been the process, whether it's Chief Executive Palmer or any of his predecessors that were chief executives. So at this time, I'll make a motion to concur and place on file.
Second.
We have a motion, substitute motion made and seconded to concur in the request in communication 2020-320 and place of communication on file. Is there anything on the question? Seeing none, will everyone please vote? Anyone wishing to change their vote? Will the clerk please record the vote? And 10 yea and 2 nay, motion carries. I'll just like to say at this time that once again I will have Nicole put out a press release tomorrow calling for names to come forward for all of the boards that are out there. And even if there's not a vacancy now, we'll keep the list running, and then if a vacancy comes up, we will contact that person and see if they're still interested. But as I, too, would like to see some change in some of these citizen boards. If you don't get the people coming forward, it's awful difficult to come up with names to ask them to put on. So next, we'll go to 13, Communication 2020-321. Dave Palmer, Chief Executive, requesting Council of Commissioners to accept this letter as my formal request for your concurrence in the following reappointments to the Butte-Silver Fire Commission. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Palmer. Once again, thank you in all due respect. These gentlemen that serve on the Fire Commission do a fine job. I have no qualms with any of them personally. I appreciate the information you just put out. And the only reason I segregated these is to bring this forward because we've known as a rubber stamp commission, and that bothers me when I hear that in the public. And when I bring these out in segregation, I in no way have ill feelings towards any of these people. All I'm trying to do is bring these issues forward. So once again, I will make a motion to deny Communication 2020-321.
For the same reasons, I will second that motion.
We have a motion made and seconded to deny the request in Communication 2020-321 and place the communication on file. Is there anything on the question? Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Chief Executive Palmer, there were no other names for this board that wanted to be appointed?
No one sent in their names for this board, but if you have names, hold it in advance and we can look at them.
Just to follow up, I echo what Commissioner Fisher is saying. I don't have any issues with any of these people. It's a thankless job, and they do put in a lot of time. But again, it would be good to see, it seems to be the same people, all the time. And it's just like, I appreciate you, Jim, bringing this forward at this point. But again, people's got to step to the plate and swing the bat if they want change.
Anything else on the Commissioner Donna and then Commissioner Rolls?
Thank you. I'm not trying to play the devil's advocate with my buddy Commissioner Fisher tonight, but I agree that we need change in different things, but some people put their name in and get out there and do it. I mean, if these people are willing to serve and continue to serve and take the heat for decisions they make, so be it. I admire them. Just like we do as commissioners, but, everyone in the public should know. I mean, I've seen letters and notices in the paper that if you want to serve on these boards, you just have to send a letter or volunteer, and those decisions are made. So at this time, I'll make a motion and concur and place on file.
Second.
Okay, we have a substitute motion made and seconded to concur in the request in 2020-321 and place the communication on file. Is there anything on the question? Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I would like to take you up on your offer of going out for more individuals to see if they might be interested in this position. So I'm going to make a motion to end all motions, that we hold communication 2020-321 in the committee of the whole, and ask that you go out for other individuals.
Okay, we have a motion to end all motions to hold communication 2020-321 in the committee of the whole, and put out a call or a request for citizens to put their names forward for this fire commission seats that are vacant. Is there anything on the question? Okay, will everyone please vote? Anyone wishing to change their vote? Will the clerk please record the vote? Looks like there's 9 yea and 3 nay. Motion carries. Next, we'll go to 14, Communication 2020-322. Dave Palmer, Chief Executive, requesting Council of Commissioners to accept this letter as my formal request for your concurrence in the following reappointments to the Park and Recreation Board. Commissioner Fisher.
Once again, thank you, Chief Executive Palmer. Same stating as the last. I do think that the comment you made, and rather than making a motion to deny this, I think I would go along with the motion made by Chairman Morgan to maybe revisit this and see if other people want to get on this board. I mean, maybe if it has been out there, I haven't seen it. I in no way intend to try and influence anyone's decision. I'm just trying to get a little more community involvement. So I would make a motion at this time to read the same as the motion Commissioner Chairman Morgan had last time. In a motion.
Second.
Okay. I just want to we have a motion made and seconded to hold this communication in the committee of the whole and ask for people to volunteer for this board, and then we submit a new name. On the question, or I just want to make a comment that this person is a new person to this board, and that I went out and looked and tried to get people that were in eye contact with one of the parks in town, and this person lives directly across the street from one of our larger parks, and I felt that that person being able to keep an eye on it at all times and see what's going on. One of the parks that we've been having a lot of trouble with in the neighborhood, vandalism. We had several neighborhood meetings down there. I thought this one would be a perfect fit, but brand new person, so it sort of goes against what you were saying for all of the other ones, but that was my comment. Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I think this one proves that there is a new person. I don't think this same thing is really true. I really sense the idea that we're a rubber stamp competition. And here's a perfect example of a new person. I think Dave did his due diligence in trying to find somebody that fit the bill. So I would make a substitute motion to concur and place communication 2020-322 on file.
Second.
We have a substitute motion made and seconded to concur and request in communication 2020-322 and place the communication on file. On the question, Commissioner Storage.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. You know, if we're going to hold these in committee of the whole, we should do them all, because it's really not fair to the ones that we did earlier that we passed. Because, you know, so I don't know if we'd have to redo the communications or what we would have to do, but to me it doesn't seem fair that we're doing some and not the others.
Well, I disagree with that concept, but that's just my opinion. Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I apologize. I can't call up the communication right now as I'm in this meeting and running it, but the appointment that you asked on this was Mr. Merrifield. Is it? No.
This one was Christine Hall.
Christine Hall was the one that was nominated.
Gotcha. Okay.
Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Chief Executive Palmer. So as most of you know, I'm on the Parks Board, and this seat being proposed for Ms. Hall is this has been a seat that's had a lot of turnover. I've been on the Parks Board for almost a couple of years now, and that seat has routinely needed to be filled because the person that was in there, wasn't showing up for meetings. So I don't know Ms. Hall personally, but it seems like she's got a reputation of being reliable. So I agree with this nomination. So.
Commissioner Fisher?
Thank you, Chief Executive Palmer. The way I was reading it, I thought it was an appointment of one and reappointment of two others. So I thought we were actually doing three people instead of one.
You're probably right. I don't have the communication in front of me, but the new person replacing one was Commissioner Shaw. So, I mean,
yeah.
Dean Hall.
I'm reading it as three people. I'm reading it as Steve Hall, Philip Barb, and Chuck Merrifield, which I think are all well-qualified people to do a good job. I just thought if we held it.
I thought I was only doing the one. So if you want to make, however you want to do it, if you want me to put out the call for new people so we can see if we can get new blood on the commission, I'm good with it.
That was my motion, and I'll hold to it. Thank you.
Anything else on the question? We're still on the substitute motion to concur and request. Commissioner Anderson.
I'm good. I was just thinking, can we just call for the vote?
Yeah. Okay, everyone, please vote. Will the clerk please record the vote?
Looks like we need one more. Okay.
Looks like 8 yay and 4 nay. Motion carries. That's the end of the consent agenda communications. I think that was the last one that was segregated. So we will go to the two communications that we suspended the rules for. Communication 2020-328. Commissioner Morgan, I don't have that communication in front of me. Do you have it? So do you read the communication?
Yes, Mr. Chief Executive. Communication number 20-328 is a communication from Mr. Mark Neary, Public Works Director. Attached, please find the change order for order number 4 for Markovich Construction for the shop relocation project. This change order increases 2 line items for Building E. The Technical Review Committee for the shop relocation project determined there was a need to replace wall panels and roofing on the building being moved to the site. This increased the contracted cost by $65,230. I'm requesting that the council approve and authorize the chief executive to sign the change order number 4 for Markovich Construction. At this time, Mr. Chief Executive, I'll make a motion that we approve communication 20-328 and place on file.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded to concur in requesting communication 2020-328, place the communication on file. Is there anything on the question? Will everyone please vote? Anyone wishing to change their vote? Will the clerk please record the vote? Like 12 yea and 0 nay, motion carried. Next we'll go to communication 2020-329. This one is for the public hearing for the Bureau of Justice Assistance Grant. The purpose of this communication is to request the Council of Commissioners conduct a public hearing at its August 5th, 2020 regular meeting regarding the submission of a Bureau of Justice Assistance 2020 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant. Thank you for your consideration. Doug Conley. Commissioner Morgan.
So, Mr. Chief Executive, I may need some advice from the county attorney on this one, but it appears that they're asking that we conduct a public hearing at tonight's meeting, and so I believe we'd have to open it for a public hearing.
Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Morgan, that's correct. Ms. Gleason can explain the purpose of the grant and what's being asked for and whether or not there's a match, and then you can open it up for proponents and opponents.
Just open it.
So do we have to concur in this request first and give them the public hearing and then go ahead with the public hearing? It has been advertised, and that was the problem. The communication didn't get submitted at the time. They did advertise for the public hearing.
Right. That's correct, Mr. Chief Executive, and I think that this is just on the agenda now. The communication assigned to it is just for the purpose of having a public hearing. So since it was advertised, I think you can go ahead and proceed with the public hearing.
Okay. So we will open the public hearing, and I do not believe there's a staff report unless someone has a...
Miss Gleason, I believe, does. She's on mute.
Gleason, would you like to talk about this?
Sure. Chief Executive Palmer, Commissioners, this J grant is one that we've received in the past for many years, usually used to purchase computer equipment over in the law enforcement department. This time it's going to be a joint grant that will supply computers for the briefing room and then be used to purchase a couple computers in the county attorney's office as well. This round of grant cycles allows for that joint county attorney's office and the law enforcement. It's really important that we always apply for these grants every fiscal year. As a result of just being a recipient last fiscal year of a grant, under the CARES Act funds, we received $55,000 in a separate grant. So I encourage every year that we continue to apply for these grants. They are a lot of work sometimes, but the small dollars, the effort is always out there, and it's well worth the time to apply for these grants.
Okay. Jeanette, what's the amount of the grant?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's $18,935 with no match.
Anyone on the council have any questions for Jeanette? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. Call for proponents.
Is there anybody there? Nobody's on the phone, and I don't have any comments that I've received.
Second call for proponents.
Oh, keep it going.
Third and final call for proponents. Seeing none, we'll move to opponents. Are there any opponents?
Doesn't appear that anybody's on the phone.
Third and final call for opponents. Any opponents, John?
No, Mr. Chief Executive.
Okay. Then we'll close the public hearing. Next, we'll go to Section 3, Ordinances and Resolutions, final reading. Resolution number 2020-15, a resolution establishing procedures for the sale and disposition of real property acquired by the city and county of Butte-Silver, Montana, through tax deed during the period between a first and second tax sale auction as provided by Chapter 3.20 of the Butte-Silver Municipal Code and by Title 7, Chapter 8, Part 23, Title 7, Chapter 25 of the Montana Code annotated MCA and providing for an effective date herein.
Mr. Chief Executive, this resolution was placed on the agenda on accident. It was before the Judiciary Committee last week, and the recommendation was hold in abeyance. it was caught after publication date, so I would just ask that we don't take action on this resolution tonight.
Put in committee of the whole, judiciary.
Judiciary, yeah, it's in there already, it just
Okay.
accidentally showed up.
Then we'll just skip this one. Next time, stop me before I read it.
No, I thought you needed to read it.
Section 4, suspension of the rules for final passage, resolution number 2020-35. Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move for the suspension of the rules for the purpose of passing Council Resolution 2020-35, Council Resolution 2020-36, Council Resolution 2020-37, and Resolution number 2020-38 by waiving subsection 7 of Rule 36 of the Rules and Order of the Council of Commissioners, thereby having it considered for advanced passage without reference to the Judiciary Committee.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded to suspend the rules for passing Council Resolution 2020-35, 2020-36, 2020-37, 2023-38 on final reading without reference to the Judiciary. Is there anything on the question? None. All those in favor, please vote. Even if you're not in favor, please vote. Anyone wishing to change their vote? Will the clerk please record the vote? Yea and 0 no. Nay. Motion carries. We'll go to resolution number 2020-35. Resolution authorizing and approving the exchange of real property located in and owned by the city and county of Butte-Silver, state of Montana, described by on Exhibit A attached and incorporated herein to the adjoining owners Edward C. and Debbie J. Newgard, pursuant to policies adopted by the Council of Commissioners and providing for an effective date herein. Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to place Council Resolution 2020-35 on final reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded to pass Council Resolution number 2020-35 on final reading. Is there anything on the question? Will everyone please vote? Anyone wishing to change their vote? Will the clerk please record the vote?
Guess I gotta vote. The heat's getting to me, Mr. Chief Executive.
12 yea and 0 nay. Motion carries. Number 2, Resolution 2020-36. Resolution creating the Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority for the purpose of providing for the preservation and improvement of the abandoned rail service in southern Montana. Commissioner Morgan.
Mr. Chief Executive, I move to place Council Resolution 2020-36 on final reading and pass, having been deemed fully read at length.
Second.
Have a motion made and seconded to pass Council Resolution 2020-36 on final reading. Is there anything on the question? Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I think this is an appropriate time to talk about some public comment that we received this evening. If I'm incorrect, the county attorney can correct me if I'm wrong, but the only thing that I want to make sure that everybody's aware of, because I had to deal with the railroad situation back in 2010, 11, 12, behind the Serbian church. Just so everybody's aware, I completely agree that that rail service could not be restored, but it is still licensed as a railroad, and if they find the funding to get it through there, they could make it into a railroad again. There was nothing that defined that, and so I just don't want public knowledge to be out there that it can't be a railroad again. There are railroad tracks there, and it is owned by one of the major railroads. So just wanted to clarify that out there.
Thank you. Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Excellent point, Commissioner Morgan. I would like to add to that if we are not a member of the Railroad Authority, we will not have a say if they decide to do that. So hopefully the listening public will understand that what we are voting to govern the possibility of Southern Rail Service. We're not appropriating any money towards this. It's not costing the taxpayers a dime. We're not voting to yay or nay build a railroad somewhere. It's simply to join the authority so we have a seat at the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Commissioner Olson.
Thank you, Chief Executive. I just want to apologize for speaking up earlier, but basically I'm mirroring what I said previously in regard to this. Thank you.
Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Chief Executive Palmer. Commissioner Olson beat me to it. I also would like to apologize for not commenting, not following the proper procedure. Thank you.
No problem. Any further comments or questions? Okay. Will everyone please vote? Anyone wishing to change their vote? Will the clerk please record the vote? Yea and 0 nay, motion carries. Number 3, Resolution 2020-37. Resolution approving and accepting the donation of certain parcels of real property located in Butte-Silver, Montana for particularly described in Exhibit 1, attachment hereto and incorporated herein from Edward C. and Debbie J. Newgard for the benefit of the public, providing for an effective date herein. Is that the same resolution as number 1?
If I could, I believe 35 and 37 are a trade of property of some kind or another. I don't know where it's at, but it says the track numbers, but it doesn't tell us the exact location.
I believe they are separate communications, Mr. Chief Executive.
Mr. Morgan.
Mr. Chief Executive, I'll make a motion that we place Resolution 20-37 on final reading and pass, having been deemed fully read at length.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded to pass Council Resolution 2020-37 on final reading. Is there anything on the question? Will everyone please vote? Anyone wishing to change their vote? Will the clerk please record the vote? Yea and 0 nay, motion carries. Number 4, Resolution 2020-38. A resolution requesting appointment of special deputy prosecutors for the Prosecutor's Service Bureau, the Department of Justice, and providing for an effective date herein. Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. At this time, I'll make a motion that we place Resolution 2020-38 on final reading and pass, having been deemed fully read at length.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded to pass Council Resolution 2020-38 on final reading. Is there anything on the question? Will everyone please vote? Anyone wishing to change their vote? Will the clerk please record the vote? Yea and 0 nay, motion carries. Now's the time for any public comment on any public matter not on the agenda. Phone lines are open, 497-5009.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Nobody at this time is on the phone. Still nobody on the phone.
Okay. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second.
A motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for talking trash tonight.
Good night, everyone.
Have a good night, everybody. Thanks.